The desert heat pressed down like a suffocating blanket as the convoy of armored vehicles rolled through the narrow mountain pass. Staff Sergeant Marcus Chen adjusted his grip on his rifle, scanning the rocky terrain through his scope. The intelligence had been clear. This was supposed to be a routine patrol through a secured zone. But in Afghanistan, routine was a word that got soldiers killed. Contact left, contact left. The radio crackled to life as gunfire erupted from the hillside. The lead vehicle swerved violently before an explosion sent it tumbling down the embankment. Marcus felt his stomach drop as he watched the Humvee roll 3 times before coming to rest on its side, smoke pouring from the engine. All units dismount and take cover. Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice cut through the chaos. The remaining vehicles screeched to a halt as the SEALs poured out, taking defensive positions behind the armored doors and nearby rocks. The Taliban fighters had chosen their ambush point perfectly. The Americans were trapped in a narrow valley with limited cover and no easy escape route. Marcus dove behind a boulder as bullets whined overhead, fragments of stone stinging his face. Through the dust and smoke, he could see the overturned vehicle. 3 of his teammates were trapped inside, and the fuel leak meant they had minutes before the whole thing went up in flames. "We need to get them out now," Petty Officer Jackson shouted over the gunfire. He was their medic, a quiet man from Ohio who had saved more lives than anyone could count. Without waiting for orders, Jackson sprinted toward the wreckage, his medical bag bouncing against his hip. The enemy fire intensified as they realized what he was trying to do. Marcus and the others laid down covering fire, their weapons chattering in short, controlled bursts. But there were too many shooters and they had the high ground. Jackson made it halfway before a sniper's bullet caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around and dropping him to the rocky ground. "Jackson's down," Rodriguez screamed into his radio. "We need immediate extraction and medical support." The response was grim. Negative on immediate extraction. Weather's closing in fast. You're on your own for at least 4 hours. Marcus felt his blood run cold. 4 hours was a lifetime in a firefight like this. The wounded vehicle crew wouldn't last that long. And now Jackson was bleeding out in the open while bullets kicked up dirt around him. That's when they heard it. A voice calling out in accented English from somewhere near the wreckage. "Please, I help." "I am doctor." Through the smoke and confusion, a figure emerged from behind the overturned Humvee. It was a young Afghan woman, maybe 25 years old, wearing traditional robes that were now torn and dusty. She had been traveling in a civilian vehicle that had been caught in the ambush, and somehow, she had survived the initial explosion. "Stay down," Marcus yelled, but the woman ignored him. With incredible courage, she crawled toward Jackson's position, keeping low as bullets whistled overhead. The SEALs watched in amazement as she reached the wounded medic, and immediately began working on his shoulder wound with steady, practiced hands. "She knows what she's doing," Rodriguez observed, watching through his binoculars. The woman had torn strips from her own clothing to create pressure bandages, and her movements were those of someone with real medical training. But the Taliban fighters had spotted her too. The gunfire shifted in her direction, and Marcus realized they were deliberately targeting her now. In their twisted ideology, a woman helping American soldiers was a traitor deserving of death. "We have to help her," Jackson called out weakly. Despite his wound, he was trying to treat the trapped crew members while the Afghan woman worked to stop his bleeding. "She's good, really good. Better than some military medics I've seen." The woman looked up briefly, meeting Marcus's eyes across the battlefield. There was something in her gaze, a determination and fearlessness that he recognized. It was the same look he'd seen in the eyes of hardened combat veterans, not the terrified expression of a civilian caught in crossfire. "There's something different about her," Rodriguez muttered, echoing Marcus's thoughts. "She's not panicking like a normal civilian would." The woman continued working with incredible efficiency, moving between the wounded soldiers with confidence despite the ongoing gunfire. She had somehow managed to stabilize Jackson's shoulder, and was now focused on extracting the crew from the overturned vehicle. Her hands moved with surgical precision as she assessed injuries and applied first aid. "Who is this woman?" Marcus wondered aloud. The way she handled trauma, the calm under fire, the tactical awareness she showed when moving between cover positions, none of it added up to a simple civilian doctor. A massive explosion rocked the valley as the Taliban launched an RPG at their position. The blast wave knocked everyone flat, and when Marcus looked up, he saw the woman shielding one of the wounded soldiers with her own body. Shrapnel had torn new holes in her robes, but she was still conscious and still working. She just saved Peterson's life, Rodriguez reported. That grenade would have killed him if she hadn't covered him. The firefight raged on as the SEALs held their defensive positions. The mysterious woman continued moving between the wounded, treating injuries with equipment she somehow produced from beneath her traditional clothing. Marcus noticed she had military-grade medical supplies, trauma bandages, morphine injectors, even a portable IV kit. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the valley, the Taliban fire started to slacken. They were probably regrouping for a final assault before the American reinforcements could arrive. Marcus knew this was just the beginning of a very long night. The woman looked up from her work, sweat and dust streaking her face. For just a moment, Marcus caught a glimpse of something metallic around her neck before she quickly tucked it back beneath her robes. It looked like dog tags. "Rodriguez," Marcus called softly to his lieutenant. "We need to find out who she really is." The lieutenant nodded grimly. "After we get out of this alive. But you're right. There's definitely more to her story than she's letting on." As darkness fell over the Afghan mountains, the mysterious woman continued her work, moving like a ghost between the wounded soldiers. Whatever her true identity, one thing was clear. She was their only hope of keeping everyone alive until help arrived. The night brought no relief from the oppressive heat, but it did provide cover. Marcus watched the mysterious woman work in the dim light of a red-filtered flashlight, her movements still precise despite hours of continuous medical care. She had managed to stabilize all 4 wounded soldiers, including Jackson, who was now conscious enough to assist her. "I've never seen field medicine like this," Jackson whispered to Marcus during a brief lull in the fighting. "She knows techniques I learned in advanced trauma courses." "Military techniques," the woman overheard and looked up sharply. For a moment, her carefully maintained composure slipped, and Marcus saw a flicker of something like panic in her eyes. She had been caught understanding more English than she had initially let on. "You are military doctor?" she asked Jackson in broken English, but Marcus noticed her accent seemed less pronounced than before. She was working hard to maintain her cover, but exhaustion was making it difficult. "Navy medic," Jackson replied carefully. "Hospital corpsman, you?" She hesitated, her hand stilling on the bandage she was adjusting. I study in Kabul. Medicine. It was a lie, and they all knew it. No medical school in Kabul taught the advanced combat trauma techniques she had been using all day. Marcus exchanged glances with Rodriguez, who had been quietly observing the exchange. A sudden burst of gunfire from the ridge above sent everyone scrambling for cover. The Taliban had night vision equipment now, and green laser dots danced across the rocks around them. One of the beams settled on the woman's back as she bent over Petty Officer Chin, who had taken shrapnel to the leg. "Sniper!" Marcus shouted, but the woman was already moving. In one fluid motion, she grabbed Chen and rolled both of them behind a larger boulder just as the sniper's bullet sparked. Off the rock where they had been, the movement was pure military training, a combat role that protected both the patient and the medic. Marcus had seen it executed perfectly in training, but never by a supposed civilian. "Where did you learn to do that?" Rodriguez demanded, low enough that only their small group could hear. The woman's eyes darted between their faces. She was trapped now, her cover blown by her own instincts. When bullets started flying, muscle memory took over and her real training showed through. "Please," she said quietly, her English suddenly much clearer. "I cannot tell you." "Not safe. Not safe for who?" Marcus pressed. "Us or you?" Before she could answer, a new sound reached their ears, the distant thump of helicopter rotors. But instead of relief, the woman's face showed terror. "No," she whispered. "They cannot see me. Please, you must not let them see me." She started pulling her headscarf lower, trying to hide her face, but it was too late. The helicopter's searchlight swept across their position, illuminating everyone in stark white light. Marcus saw the woman freeze like a deer in headlights, her face fully exposed. "Bravo 7, this is Dustoff 4-1, the radio crackled. "We have visual on your position. Prepare for medical evacuation. Negative," the woman suddenly shouted, her voice carrying clear command authority. "Tell them Dustoff is not secure. Taliban has SAM capability." The SEALs stared at her in shock. She had just given a perfect tactical assessment using proper military terminology. No civilian would know that surface-to-air missiles posed a threat to the evacuation helicopter, or use the correct radio protocol. Rodriguez keyed his radio. Dustoff 4-1, be advised potential SAM threat in area. Request standoff until we can clear LZ. Copy that, Bravo 7. We'll orbit at safe distance. The woman looked at Rodriguez with something like gratitude, but also growing desperation. Thank you, she said simply. Who are you really? Jackson asked gently. As a medic, he had learned to read people, and he could see she was carrying a burden much heavier than just the day's trauma. She was quiet for a long moment, listening to the helicopter circling overhead. Finally, she spoke in perfect, unaccented English. My name is Dr. Amira Hassan. I was a combat medic with the Afghan National Army Special Forces. The revelation hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Afghan women weren't supposed to serve in combat roles, especially not with Special Forces units. It was not only dangerous but potentially deadly in a society where such actions could be seen as violations of traditional values. Marcus asked. My unit was betrayed 6 months ago. Taliban sympathizers in the regular army gave away our position during a joint operation with American forces. 12 of my teammates died. I escaped, but officially Dr. Amira Hassan died in that ambush too. Rodriguez felt the pieces clicking into place. You've been living as a civilian since then? She nodded. I had no choice. The Taliban put a bounty on my head, not just because I was military, but because I saved American lives. In their eyes, I am twice a traitor, a woman who fought like a man and an Afghan who helped infidels. But you stayed, Jackson observed. You could have fled to Pakistan or Iran. Afghanistan is my home, she said simply. These are my people, even if some of them want me dead. I became a village doctor, helping where I could while staying hidden. Marcus understood now why she had been traveling on this road. She was probably moving between villages, providing medical care to people who had nowhere else to turn. It was incredibly dangerous work, especially for a woman with a price on her head. The helicopter, Rodriguez said suddenly. You're afraid they'll identify you. If my face gets into any official reports, if anyone realizes Dr. Amira Hassan is still alive, the Taliban will know within days. They have informants everywhere. The sound of gunfire erupted again from the ridgeline. The Taliban were making another push, probably trying to bring down the circling helicopter with shoulder-fired missiles. Green tracers arced across the night sky as the aircraft took evasive action. We need to move, Rodriguez decided. This position is too exposed. As they prepared to relocate the wounded, Marcus noticed something that made his blood run cold. Red laser dots were appearing on the rocks around them again, but these weren't the same green beams from Taliban night vision. These were American targeting lasers. Friendly spotters have us marked, he realized. Another team was moving into position to support them. Probably special operations forces called in for the rescue. They would have thermal imaging, facial recognition technology, and direct links to intelligence databases. Amira saw the red dots too and understood immediately. They will photograph everyone for their reports, she said quietly. Standard procedure for any rescue operation. Marcus made a split-second decision that would change everything. He pulled off his helmet and placed it on Amira's head, then draped his jacket around her shoulders. You're one of us now, he told her. If anyone asks, you're a local interpreter attached to our unit. Rodriguez caught on immediately and began briefing the rest of the team. Her name is Anna Hassan, civilian interpreter. She's been with us all day. Everyone got that? The other SEALs nodded without hesitation. They had all seen what she had done, how many lives she had saved. Whatever her story, she had earned their protection. As the rescue team moved into position, Amira looked at each of them with tears in her eyes. Why, she asked. Why would you risk this for me? Jackson answered for all of them. Because you didn't hesitate to risk everything for us. The rescue operation moved with military precision. Delta Force operators appeared like shadows from the darkness, their night vision goggles giving them an otherworldly appearance. Team leader Captain Sarah Mitchell approached Rodriguez's position with her weapon at the ready, scanning for threats. Bravo 7, what's your status? She asked tersely. 4 wounded, all stable thanks to our interpreter, Rodriguez replied, gesturing toward Amira. Anna Hassan. She's got medical training and has been keeping our guys alive. Captain Mitchell's gaze settled on Amira, who kept her head down and the oversized helmet pulled low. Even in the dim light, her trained eye could see something was off about the supposed interpreter. "Ma'am," Mitchell addressed Amira directly, "I need to verify your identity for my report." Standard procedure. Amira's hands trembled slightly as she reached into her robes, but instead of identification, she pulled out a blood-stained medical kit. "I'm sorry, Captain. My papers were lost in the explosion. I was only trying to help the wounded soldiers." Mitchell studied her carefully. The woman's English was too good, her medical knowledge too advanced, and her composure under fire too steady for a typical civilian interpreter. But she also noticed the protective stance the SEALs had taken around her, the way they watched Mitchell's every move. "Sergeant Chen," Mitchell called to Marcus, "tell me exactly what happened here." Marcus chose his words carefully. "We were ambushed in the pass. First vehicle rolled, 4 men trapped. Anna was traveling in a civilian car that got caught in the crossfire. When she saw Jackson get hit trying to reach the wreck, she didn't hesitate. Saved all our lives. She performed advanced trauma surgery with improvised tools," Jackson added from his stretcher. "I've never seen anything like it. She's got skills that would make Army surgeons jealous." Captain Mitchell nodded slowly. She had commanded enough operations to recognize when her troops were protecting someone, and she had enough experience to know when not to push too hard for answers. Sometimes the official report wasn't as important as doing the right thing. "Dust off 4-1, this is Mitchell. LZ is secure. Bring it in." The medical helicopter descended in a whirlwind of dust and rotor wash. Combat medics jumped out before the aircraft even touched down, rushing toward the wounded with their equipment. Amira instinctively moved to help them, but Jackson caught her arm. "Let them handle it now," he said quietly. "You've done enough." As the medics worked to stabilize the wounded for transport, one of them, a young sergeant named Williams, looked up at Amira with obvious respect. "Ma'am, I don't know what you did out here, but these guys are in better shape than most casualties I see after 12 hours in the field. You saved their lives." Amira simply nodded, not trusting herself to speak. The praise felt hollow when she knew she was living a lie, but she also knew that revealing her true identity could get everyone in this valley killed. Captain Mitchell approached Rodriguez while the wounded were being loaded onto the helicopter. "Lieutenant, I need to ask you something off the record." Rodriguez tensed. "Yes, ma'am?" "Is there anything else I need to know about this situation? Anything that might affect the safety of my team or this operation?" Rodriguez met her eyes steadily. "No, ma'am. Just a brave civilian who helped us when we needed it most." Mitchell studied his face for a long moment, then nodded. "Understood. We'll extract everyone to Bagram. Your interpreter can ride with the wounded if she wants." "Actually," Amira spoke up, "I should return to my village. My people will be worried." "Negative," Mitchell said firmly. "This area isn't secure. Taliban could be regrouping for another attack. You're coming with us until we can arrange safe transport back to your home." Amira felt trapped. Going to Bagram Air Base meant more questions, more opportunities for someone to recognize her or run her through databases. But refusing would look suspicious and might endanger the men who had protected her. "Thank you, Captain. You are very kind." As they prepared to board the helicopter, Marcus pulled Amira aside. "Listen, when we get to base, stick close to us. Don't talk to intelligence officers alone. If anyone starts asking detailed questions about your background, tell them you need an interpreter yourself." "Why are you doing this?" she asked again. "You barely know me." Marcus looked back at the overturned Humvee, then at Jackson being loaded onto a stretcher. "Because good people are rare in this world. And because I've seen what happens to local nationals who help us and then get abandoned by the system." The helicopter ride to Bagram was tense. Amira sat between Marcus and Rodriguez, acutely aware that every minute brought her closer to potential discovery. The base had facial recognition systems, biometric scanners, and intelligence officers whose job was to identify exactly the kind of person she was pretending not to be. As they approached the sprawling military complex, Amira could see the lights of dozens of aircraft and vehicles. Bagram was one of the largest American bases in Afghanistan, home to thousands of personnel and some of the most sophisticated intelligence-gathering equipment in the world. "Remember," Rodriguez whispered as they prepared to land, "you're Anna Hassan, civilian interpreter attached to our unit. You've been working with us for 3 months. You're from Kabul originally but moved to the provinces for work." Amira nodded, but her heart was racing. She knew that within hours, Every detail of this incident would be analyzed, photographed, and filed in multiple databases. The chances of her maintaining her cover seemed impossibly slim. The helicopter touched down on the medical landing pad, and immediately they were surrounded by activity. Medical personnel rushed to unload the wounded, while military police took positions to secure the area. Amira noticed several officers with cameras documenting everything for their reports. "Ma'am," a young MP approached her. "I'm Corporal Davis. I need to escort you to the processing center for documentation." Amira's blood turned to ice. The processing center was where they would photograph her, take fingerprints, and run background checks on anyone who had been involved in the incident. "Corporal," Marcus interrupted, "Anna has been traumatized by the attack. She probably needs medical attention before any processing." Davis looked uncertain. "Sir, I have orders to document all foreign nationals involved in the incident." "And you will." Captain Mitchell appeared at Marcus's shoulder. "But medical treatment takes priority. The interpreter can be processed after she's been cleared by the doctors." Amira realized that Mitchell was buying her time, though she wasn't sure why. Perhaps the captain had her own suspicions about the official story, or perhaps she simply recognized a fellow soldier in distress. "Yes, ma'am," Davis replied. "I'll escort her to the medical facility first." As they walked toward the hospital building, Amira caught sight of something that made her stomach drop. A bulletin board near the entrance displayed photographs of wanted Taliban fighters and their associates. But it also showed rewards for information about traitors and collaborators, including a recent photograph of herself in Afghan army uniform. The picture was slightly blurred and several months old, but it was unmistakably her. Above it, in both English and Dari, was a notice offering a substantial reward for information leading to the capture of the female traitor, Amira Hassan, enemy of Islam and servant of the occupiers. Marcus saw her freeze and followed her gaze to the bulletin board. His face went pale as he recognized the woman in the photograph, then looked back at Amira with new understanding. "How much time do we have?" he asked quietly. "Not much," she whispered back. "Once they run my fingerprints or photograph me properly, the computers will make the connection." Marcus made another split-second decision that would define the rest of the night. "Then we make sure that doesn't happen." The medical facility at Bagram buzzed with activity as Marcus guided Amira through the corridors. He had been to this hospital many times before, bringing wounded teammates for treatment, and he knew the layout well. More importantly, he knew which areas had security cameras and which didn't. "Doc Martinez," Marcus called out to a familiar face, a Navy surgeon who had patched up half his unit over the past 2 deployments. "We need your help." Dr. Elena Martinez looked up from her paperwork, recognizing Marcus immediately. "Sergeant Chen, I heard about the ambush. How are your men?" "They'll live, thanks to her," Marcus nodded toward Amira. "But we have a problem. Anna here got banged up pretty bad in the explosion. I think she might have a concussion, maybe internal injuries. She needs a thorough examination." Martinez studied Amira's face, noting the exhaustion and stress that went beyond physical trauma. As a military doctor, she had learned to read between the lines when soldiers brought her cases that weren't quite what they seemed. "Of course. Let's get her into exam room 3. It's private and I can do a complete workup." Exam room 3 was perfect for Marcus's purposes. It was in an older section of the hospital that hadn't been upgraded with the latest security systems, and it had a door that locked from the inside. More importantly, Dr. Martinez was someone he trusted. As Martinez began her examination, Marcus stood guard by the door while Rodriguez kept watch in the hallway. They were buying time, but they all knew it wouldn't be long before someone came looking for the mysterious interpreter. "Anna," Dr. Martinez said gently, using the cover name, "I need you to be honest with me about your injuries. Any pain, dizziness, nausea?" Amira shook her head. "I am fine, doctor. Just tired." Martinez continued her examination, but Marcus could see she was stalling, drawing out procedures that should have taken minutes. She had recognized something in the situation and was choosing to help without asking questions. "I'm going to need to run some tests," Martinez announced. "Blood work, maybe a CT scan. It could take several hours to get the results." "Several hours?" Marcus asked, catching the doctor's meaning. "Oh yes, at least 4 or 5 hours, maybe more if the lab is backed up. We're very thorough here when it comes to potential head injuries." A knock at the door made everyone freeze. "Dr. Martinez? This is Corporal Davis." I need to speak with the interpreter when you're finished. Martinez opened the door just wide enough to poke her head out. Corporal, my patient has a suspected concussion and possible internal bleeding. She needs immediate medical attention and cannot be disturbed for several hours. Ma'am, I have orders. Are you overriding my medical judgment, Corporal? Martinez's voice carried the authority of an officer who had performed surgery under fire and wouldn't be intimidated by military police protocols. Davis backed down immediately. No, ma'am. I'll check back later. As his footsteps receded down the hallway, Martinez closed and locked the door. All right, someone want to tell me what's really going on here? Marcus exchanged glances with Amira, who nodded slowly. They needed allies, and Dr. Martinez had already proven herself trustworthy. Doc, what I'm about to tell you never leaves this room, Marcus began. Martinez sat down, her expression serious. I'm listening. Anna's real name is Dr. Amira Hassan. She's a former combat medic with Afghan Special Forces. Her unit was betrayed and wiped out 6 months ago. She's been living as a civilian ever since, but the Taliban has a bounty on her head. Martinez looked at Amira with new respect. And today you risked your cover to save American soldiers. I could not let them die, Amira said simply. It does not matter who they are. I took an oath to save lives. But now your face is going to be in every report about the incident, Martinez realized. And if the Taliban has informants in the system, she'll be dead within a week, Marcus finished. Martinez was quiet for a moment, processing the situation. As a military doctor, she understood the complexities of operating in Afghanistan, where today's ally could be tomorrow's enemy, and where the wrong information in the wrong hands could get people killed. What do you need from me? She asked finally. Time, Rodriguez said from his position by the door. We need to figure out how to get her out of here without going through normal processing. Martinez nodded slowly. I can keep her here for medical observation for at least 12 hours before anyone can override my authority. But after that we'll need a different plan, Marcus said. Over the next few hours, as Martinez ran unnecessary tests and filled out extensive medical reports, Marcus and Rodriguez worked their contacts on base. They reached out to other SEALs, to sympathetic intelligence officers, to anyone who might be willing to bend the rules for someone who had risked everything to save American lives. The response was mixed. Some officers were willing to help but lacked the authority to make it happen. Others had the authority but were too concerned about regulations and their own careers. A few were openly hostile to the idea of helping an Afghan national circumvent military procedures. We're running out of options, Rodriguez reported during one of his visits to the exam room. Base Command wants a full debrief on the incident, including detailed interviews with all personnel involved. Including Anna, Marcus said grimly. Especially Anna. Intelligence thinks she might have information about Taliban tactics and positions in the area. Amira looked up from the hospital bed where she had been resting. They are not wrong. I do have information that could help American forces. But the moment I share it, I become an even bigger target. Dr. Martinez had been listening from her desk where she was updating medical records. There might be another way, she said thoughtfully. What do you mean? Marcus asked. What if Anna Hassan, the interpreter, had a medical emergency, something that required immediate evacuation to Germany for specialized treatment? Marcus felt a spark of hope. Medical evacuations bypass normal processing protocols. Exactly. And once she's in Germany, she could request asylum or disappear entirely. It's a lot easier to vanish in Europe than it is here. Amira shook her head. I cannot leave Afghanistan. This is my home. My people need doctors even if they do not know who I really am. Your people need you alive, Rodriguez pointed out. Dead, you can't help anyone. The debate was interrupted by urgent knocking on the door. Dr. Martinez, this is Captain Thompson from Intelligence. I need to speak with your patient immediately. Martinez looked at Marcus, who nodded grimly. Their time was up. One moment, Captain, Martinez called out while quickly preparing a syringe. My patient is sedated for medical procedures. She turned to Amira. This is a mild sedative. It will make you appear unconscious, but you'll be able to hear everything. Whatever happens, don't react, don't move, don't speak. Amira nodded and rolled up her sleeve. As the needle went in, she felt her limbs growing heavy and her vision becoming blurry. But her mind remained sharp as she heard the door open and multiple sets of footsteps enter the room. Doctor, I need to interview this woman immediately. Captain Thompson's voice was crisp and authoritative. "I'm afraid that's impossible, Captain. She's unconscious and will be for several more hours. I had to sedate her for emergency surgery." "Surgery for what?" "Internal bleeding caused by the explosion. Very serious. In fact, I'm recommending immediate medical evacuation to Landstuhl for specialized treatment." Through her partially closed eyes, Amira could see Thompson studying her face carefully. He had photographs in his hand, probably the same wanted poster she had seen on the bulletin board. "Doctor, are you certain about her identity?" "We have reason to believe this woman might not be who she claims to be." Martinez didn't hesitate. "Captain, I've been treating trauma patients for 15 years. This woman has extensive scarring consistent with medical training. Surgical scars on her hands from years of precise work. Her response to treatment shows someone with detailed knowledge of field medicine. She's exactly who she says she is, a civilian doctor who risked her life to save American soldiers." Thompson studied the unconscious form on the bed for several more minutes. Finally, he nodded. "Very well, Doctor, but I want to be notified the moment she regains consciousness." As the intelligence officer and his team left the room, Marcus let out a breath he didn't know he had been holding. They had bought more time, but the net was closing around them. "We need to move fast," he whispered to Martinez. "How quickly can you arrange that medical evacuation?" The medical evacuation helicopter lifted off from Bagram just before dawn, with Amira strapped to a gurney and still under sedation. Dr. Martinez had worked through the night, calling in favors and pulling strings to arrange the emergency transport to Landstuhl Regional Medical Center in Germany. Marcus sat in the jump seat beside her stretcher, officially listed as her escort since he had been the first to interact with the interpreter during the incident. In reality, he was there to make sure she made it safely to Germany and to help her disappear once they arrived. "Vitals are stable," the flight medic reported as they gained altitude. "Patient should remain unconscious for another 4 to 6 hours." Marcus nodded, watching the Afghan mountains fall away below them. Each mile they flew took Amira further from the immediate danger, but he knew their troubles were far from over. Captain Thompson had been suspicious, and it wouldn't be long before someone started asking harder questions about the mysterious interpreter. His encrypted phone buzzed with a message from Rodriguez. Thompson ran facial recognition on security footage from the hospital. "No matches yet, but he's expanding the search." "Time is running out," Marcus typed back. "Understood. We'll handle on the other end." The flight to Germany took 14 hours with refueling stops, and by the time they landed at Ramstein Air Base, Marcus had used every contact he had in the military intelligence community. Through carefully worded conversations and strategic favors, he had learned several disturbing facts. First, the Taliban bounty on Amira Hassan had increased dramatically in the past 24 hours. Word of a female Afghan doctor helping American soldiers had spread through their networks, and they suspected their most wanted traitor was still alive. Second, Captain Thompson had indeed run expanded database searches and was beginning to piece together the truth. Within hours, he would have enough evidence to issue alerts to law enforcement agencies across Europe. Third, and most troubling, there were reports of Taliban sympathizers operating within the Afghan immigrant communities in several European cities. If Amira's location became known, she wouldn't be safe even in Germany. As they transferred her to Landstuhl Medical Center, Marcus made a decision that would define the rest of his military career. He was going to help her disappear, even if it meant ending his own service. Dr. Sarah Chen, the attending physician at Landstuhl, met them at the helicopter pad. She had worked with Dr. Martinez before and trusted her assessment of critical cases. "What's the patient's condition?" Dr. Chen asked as they wheeled Amira into the trauma bay. "Stable but critical," Marcus replied, using the cover story they had prepared. "Internal bleeding, possible traumatic brain injury. Dr. Martinez recommended specialized neurosurgery consultation." Dr. Chen nodded and began her examination. Like Martinez, she was experienced enough to recognize when a case wasn't quite what it appeared to be, but professional enough not to ask uncomfortable questions. "I'll need to run a full workup," she announced. "CT scans, blood work, the complete series. It could take most of the day." "Doctor," Marcus said quietly, "there may be some unusual circumstances surrounding this patient. She helped save American lives, but there could be people looking for her." Dr. Chen met his eyes steadily. Sergeant, in my experience, the best medicine is often practiced without unnecessary outside interference. I'll make sure my patient gets the privacy she needs to recover. As Amira was taken for her scans, Marcus found a quiet corner and made a series of encrypted phone calls. The first was to a contact in the State Department who owed him a favor from a previous operation. I need emergency asylum processing for an Afghan national, Marcus explained. Someone who saved American lives and is now being hunted by the Taliban. Marcus, you know the process takes months, sometimes years. She doesn't have months. She has maybe hours before they track her down. There was a long pause. Send me everything you have. No promises, but I'll see what I can do. The second call was to his sister Emily, who worked for an international aid organization in Berlin. She had helped relocate refugees before, and knew the underground networks that could make people disappear when official channels failed. Emily, I need your help with something that could get us both in trouble. What else is new? His sister replied with familiar humor. What do you need? A way to move someone from Germany to a safe location. Someone the bad guys are actively hunting. How bad are the bad guys? Taliban with a bounty on her head. Emily's tone became serious. Meet me in Berlin tomorrow. Bring your friend, but make sure you're not followed. The third call was the hardest. He dialed Rodriguez's number back at Bagram. Marcus, where are you? Thompson is going crazy. He knows something's wrong. How much time do I have? Maybe 12 hours before he figures out the whole story and issues international alerts. Maybe less. That's all I need. Marcus, whatever you're planning, think about your career. Think about your future. Marcus looked through the window at Amira, who was slowly waking up from her sedation. Even from a distance, he could see the fear and determination in her eyes. I'm thinking about my future, he said quietly, and I'm thinking about what kind of man I want to be. When Amira fully regained consciousness, Marcus was sitting beside her bed. She looked around the German hospital room with confusion before the memories came flooding back. Where are we? She asked in a whisper. Landstuhl, Germany. You're safe for now, but we need to move fast. Marcus explained the situation, the increasing bounty, Thompson's investigation, and the limited time they had before official channels caught up with them. I have contacts who can help you disappear, he concluded. New identity, safe location, a chance to start over. Amira was quiet for a long moment. And what happens to you? I'll probably face a court-martial for helping you escape official processing. At minimum, I'll lose my security clearance and be discharged from the Navy. Then I cannot accept your help. You have already done too much. Marcus leaned forward. Amira, listen to me. I've been a SEAL for 8 years. I've seen a lot of good people die because someone made the safe choice instead of the right choice. I'm not making that mistake again. But your career. My career means nothing if I can't look at myself in the mirror. You saved my teammates. You saved my friends. Now it's my turn. Dr. Chen appeared in the doorway. I'm sorry to interrupt, but we have a problem. Security just called. There are 2 men downstairs asking questions about recent Afghan patients. They're showing badges, but something feels off about them. Marcus felt his blood turn cold. Taliban operatives? Or mercenaries working for them, Amira said grimly. The bounty is high enough to attract professionals. Dr. Chen moved quickly to her computer terminal. I'm going to discharge you immediately under an assumed name. You have maybe 10 minutes before they work their way up here. As alarms began ringing in Marcus's head, he realized their careful plans had just become a desperate race against time. The hunters had found their trail faster than anyone had expected. Is there another way out of this building? He asked Dr. Chen. Service elevator to the loading dock, but after that you're on your own. Marcus helped Amira out of bed, grateful that the sedatives had worn off enough for her to walk. As they prepared to run, she grabbed his arm. Marcus, once we leave this room, there's no going back. Are you sure about this? He looked into her eyes, the same eyes that had shown such courage under fire in the Afghan mountains. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. The service elevator descended slowly through the bowels of Landstuhl Medical Center, while Marcus checked his weapon and Amira tried to steady her breathing. Through his earpiece, he could hear Dr. Chen's voice providing updates on the men who had entered the hospital. They're on the 3rd floor now, checking patient records, moving systematically, but they know what they're looking for. The elevator reached the loading dock with a soft chime. Marcus peered through the small window before opening the doors. The area was busy with morning deliveries, trucks, staff members moving supplies. and enough activity to provide cover for their escape. Stay close and act natural, Marcus whispered as they stepped out into the controlled chaos of the hospital's supply area. They had made it halfway to the exit when Marcus's phone buzzed with an urgent message. It was from Rodriguez. Thompson issued international alert 20 minutes ago. Amira Hassan wanted for questioning in terrorist activities. All airports, borders, and safe houses compromised. Marcus felt his stomach drop. Thompson had moved faster than expected, and worse, he had labeled Amira as a terrorism suspect rather than simply a person of interest. That designation would trigger immediate detention by any law enforcement agency that spotted her. "What is it?" Amira asked, seeing his expression. "We're officially fugitives now," Marcus replied grimly. "My original plan won't work. Every official channel is closed to us." They reached the loading dock exit just as Marcus's phone rang. The caller ID showed Emily's number. "Marcus, whatever you've done, you need to know that Interpol just issued a red notice for your Afghan friend. Every police department in Europe is looking for her. How did you? I have contacts in law enforcement. The notice claims she's suspected of providing intelligence to terrorist organizations. It's complete garbage, but it doesn't matter. They're calling her armed and extremely dangerous." Marcus closed his eyes. Thompson had been thorough, painting Amira as a terrorist instead of the hero she actually was. It was a brilliant tactical move that would ensure maximum cooperation from international authorities. "Emily, we need extraction. Can your people help?" "Not through normal channels. But there might be another way. There's someone in Berlin who specializes in cases like this. Goes by the name Klaus. He helps people disappear when governments decide they're inconvenient." "Can we trust him?" "As much as you can trust anyone in this business. He's expensive and he's careful, but he's never lost a client." "How do we contact him?" "You don't, I already did. He's willing to help, but only if you can get to Berlin without being caught. And Marcus, once you make this choice, there's no going back. You'll be burning every bridge you have." Marcus looked at Amira, who was listening to his side of the conversation with growing concern. Her face showed the weight of everything he was sacrificing for her, and he could see she was struggling with the burden of his choice. "Emily, we'll be there tonight," he said decisively. "There's a safe house at Friedrichshain. Memorize this address." Emily rattled off details while Marcus committed them to memory. "Klaus will meet you there at midnight. Come alone, and make sure you're not followed." After ending the call, Marcus turned to Amira. "We need to get to Berlin, but every official transport is monitored now. We'll have to find another way." "Marcus," Amira said quietly, "you still have time to walk away from this. Turn me in. Claim you were deceived about my identity. You could salvage your career." "Not happening," Marcus replied firmly. "We're in this together now." They spent the next hour acquiring civilian clothes and a used motorcycle from a contact Marcus had cultivated during previous operations in Germany. The bike was old but reliable, and more importantly, it could navigate through traffic and take routes that larger vehicles couldn't follow. As they prepared to leave Landstuhl, Marcus received one final call from Rodriguez. "Marcus, this is your last chance. Thompson knows you helped her escape, but he's willing to cut a deal. Come back now, bring the woman with you, and you'll face minimal disciplinary action. What happens to her? Enhanced interrogation, then probable transfer to Afghan custody for prosecution." Marcus understood. Enhanced interrogation was a euphemism for torture, and Afghan custody meant certain death at the hands of Taliban sympathizers within the justice system. "Tell Thompson he can go to hell," Marcus said, ending the call and removing the battery from his phone. The ride to Berlin took 6 hours through winding back roads and small towns. Marcus had chosen a route that avoided major highways and traffic cameras, relying on his training in evasion and escape. Amira rode behind him, her arms wrapped around his waist as they navigated the German countryside. They made 2 stops, once for fuel and food, and once when Marcus spotted a police checkpoint ahead. Both times they managed to avoid detection by taking alternate routes through rural areas. As they approached Berlin in the evening, Marcus became increasingly aware that they were being hunted by multiple agencies. Police helicopters circled overhead, roadblocks appeared at strategic points, and the radio news reported an international manhunt for suspected terrorists. "They're really throwing everything at this," Marcus observed as they watched a convoy of police vehicles race past their hiding spot in a roadside forest. "The bounty must have increased again," Amira replied. "And now they can claim they're fighting terrorism instead of just hunting a traitor." They reached the outskirts of Berlin as darkness fell. The safe house Emily had mentioned was in a residential area of Friedrichshain, a neighborhood known for its alternative culture and tendency to mind its own business. Marcus parked the motorcycle several blocks away, and they walked through narrow streets lined with graffiti-covered buildings and late-night cafes. Despite the danger, there was something liberating about moving through the city as ordinary civilians rather than soldiers in a war zone. The safe house turned out to be an unremarkable apartment building with a coded entry system. Marcus punched in the numbers Emily had given him, and they climbed 3 flights of stairs to apartment 4B. Klaus was waiting for them, a thin man in his 50s with graying hair and intelligent eyes that seemed to catalog every detail about his visitors. His apartment was sparse but comfortable, with multiple computer screens and communication equipment that suggested serious professional capabilities. "You must be Marcus," Klaus said in accented English. "And Dr. Hassan, please sit down. We have much to discuss." Klaus poured 3 cups of coffee and settled into a chair across from them. "I have reviewed your situation. It is challenging. The authorities believe you are terrorists, which means they will use considerable resources to find you." "Can you help us?" Marcus asked. "Yes, but not in the way you might expect. Creating new identities for both of you would take weeks and cost more money than you have. However, there is another option." Klaus pulled up a map on one of his computer screens. "There is a place, a small village in the mountains of northern Albania. Very remote, very private. The local community takes care of its own and asks no questions about the past." "Albania?" Amira asked. "It is not perfect, but it is safe. The people there understand what it means to be hunted by governments. Many of them have their own reasons for avoiding official attention." Marcus studied the map. "What would we do there?" "You would disappear. Completely. Dr. Hassan could practice medicine. The village has no doctor and desperately needs one. You could teach, farm, build, whatever skills you have. In exchange, the community would protect you." "For how long?" Klaus shrugged. "Forever if necessary. Or until the world forgets about you, and you can surface somewhere else with new identities." It wasn't the future Marcus had planned when he woke up that morning, but as he looked at Amira, he realized it might be exactly what they both needed. "When can we leave?" he asked. "Tomorrow night. But once you make this choice, there is no returning to your old lives. Ever. Are you both prepared for that?" 2 years later, Dr. Amira Hassan stood in the doorway of her small clinic in the Albanian mountain village of Theth, watching the sun rise over the snow-capped peaks. The village had embraced her completely, calling her simply Doktoresha, the doctor. Her past as an Afghan combat medic seemed like a lifetime ago, though the skills she had learned in war served her well in this peaceful but isolated community. Marcus emerged from the small house they shared next to the clinic, carrying 2 cups of coffee and wearing the rough work clothes of a mountain farmer. His transformation had been as complete as hers, from elite Navy SEAL to village teacher and handyman. The children adored him, and the elders respected his quiet competence and willingness to work. "Any emergencies last night?" he asked, handing her a cup. "Just a broken arm from young Gyon trying to climb the old oak tree again," Amira replied with a smile. "His 3rd visit this month. I think he enjoys the attention more than he minds the pain." They had fallen into an easy routine over the past 2 years. Amira ran the village clinic, treating everything from childhood injuries to difficult births to the chronic ailments of the elderly. Marcus taught English and mathematics to the children, while helping with construction projects and farming during the harvest season. The village had kept its promise of protection. When authorities had come looking for suspicious foreigners in the first months after their arrival, the villagers had simply claimed ignorance. The couple who lived in the old doctor's house? They had been there for years, everyone said. Local people who preferred to keep to themselves. Klaus had been true to his word as well. Their old identities had been thoroughly buried, replaced with carefully crafted Albanian documents that would pass all but the most sophisticated scrutiny. As far as the official world was concerned, Marcus Chen and Amira Hassan had vanished without a trace. "Do you ever miss it?" Amira asked as they walked toward the clinic together. It was a question she had asked before, always worried that Marcus had sacrificed too much for her sake. "Miss what? The deployments? The danger? The politics?" Marcus shook his head. "The only thing I miss is Rodriguez and the guys. I wonder how they're doing." Amira understood. She missed her homeland too, but she had found something in this mountain village that she had never expected. Peace. For the first time since joining the Afghan army, she could practice medicine without worrying about bombs or bullets or political complications. As they reached the clinic, they found a small crowd gathered outside. Village elder Georgi Preka approached them with a serious expression. "Doktoresha, we have visitors," he said in Albanian, which both Marcus and Amira had learned to speak fluently. "Strangers who say they are journalists writing about rural medical care." Marcus felt his old instincts kick in. Strangers asking questions about medical care could be a coincidence, but after 2 years of looking over their shoulders, he had learned not to believe in coincidences. "Where are they now?" he asked. "At the guest house, speaking with Louisa about accommodations." Marcus and Amira exchanged glances. They had prepared for this possibility, creating escape routes and contingency plans for the day their past might catch up with them. "We should see what they want," Amira said calmly, but Marcus could hear the tension in her voice. They walked to the village guest house, a small building that served the handful of tourists who found their way to Theth each year. Through the window they could see 2 people, a man and woman in their 30s, well-dressed and carrying expensive camera equipment. The woman looked up as they approached, and Marcus felt his blood run cold. Despite her different clothing and hairstyle, he recognized her immediately. It was Captain Sarah Mitchell, the Delta Force officer who had led their rescue operation in Afghanistan. Mitchell's eyes widened with recognition as well, but her expression showed relief rather than threat. She quickly excused herself from her conversation with Louisa and stepped outside. "Marcus," she said quietly in English, "we need to talk. How did you find us?" Marcus asked, his hand instinctively moving toward where he used to carry his sidearm. "It took 2 years and some very expensive private investigators," Mitchell replied. "But before you run, you should know why we're here." The journalist with Mitchell turned out to be Rodriguez, Marcus's old lieutenant, also disguised as a civilian. The reunion was emotional but cautious, with all parties aware that discovery could mean death for more than just Marcus and Amira. "Why are you here?" Amira asked directly. Rodriguez looked around to ensure they weren't being overheard. "Because Thompson is dead, and the truth about what happened in that valley is finally coming out." Over the next hour, in the privacy of Marcus and Amira's small house, Rodriguez and Mitchell told their story. Captain Thompson had continued his investigation into the ambush incident, but his real motivation hadn't been justice or security. It had been personal, advancement and a desire to cover up his own mistakes. Turned out that Thompson had been the intelligence officer who had provided the flawed information that led to the ambush in the first place. His unit had failed to identify the Taliban positions, and 4 American soldiers had nearly died as a result. Rather than admit his error, Thompson had tried to shift blame by painting Amira as a terrorist sympathizer. But Jackson wouldn't let it go, Rodriguez continued. He kept pushing for recognition of what Amira had done. Eventually, he got the attention of some higher-ups, who started asking uncomfortable questions. The investigation had revealed not only Thompson's cover-up but also evidence that he had been taking bribes from Afghan contractors with Taliban connections. When faced with exposure and court-martial, Thompson had tried to flee the country but died in a car accident while being pursued by military police. "The official report has been rewritten," Mitchell explained. "Dr. Amira Hassan is now listed as a hero who saved American lives at great personal risk. The terrorism charges have been dropped and there's been a formal apology from the Pentagon." "What does that mean for us?" Marcus asked. "It means you can come home," Rodriguez said simply. "Both of you. Amira has been offered asylum in the United States, and Marcus, all charges against you have been dropped. They want to give you both medals." Amira was quiet for a long moment, processing the information. After 2 years of hiding, the idea of freedom seemed almost too good to believe. "The bounty?" she asked. "Gone. The Taliban leadership that put the price on your head has been eliminated in drone strikes. Your photo has been removed from all wanted lists." Marcus looked at Amira, trying to read her expression. They had built a life here in this mountain village, found purpose and peace in their work. The offer of return to their old world was tempting, but it also meant leaving behind the people who had protected them. "We need time to think," Amira said finally. That evening, As they sat on their small porch watching the stars emerge over the Albanian peaks, Marcus and Amira talked long into the night about their future. They could return to America, where Amira could practice medicine in a modern hospital and Marcus could resume his military career. Or they could stay in Theth, where they had found something precious and rare, a community that valued them for who they were, rather than what they had been. "What do you want to do?" Marcus asked. Amira smiled, taking his hand. "I want to stay here, at least for now. These people need us, and we've finally found a place where we can heal rather than just survive." Marcus nodded, feeling the rightness of her decision. "I feel the same way. Maybe someday we'll go back, but this is home now." 3 days later, Rodriguez and Mitchell prepared to leave Theth. They carried with them a message for the Pentagon. Marcus Chen and Dr. Amira Hassan were alive and well, serving their new community with the same dedication they had once shown in uniform. "Will we see you again?" Rodriguez asked as they said their goodbyes. "When the time is right," Marcus replied. "But for now, we have work to do here." As the two visitors disappeared down the mountain path, Marcus and Amira returned to their clinic where several patients were already waiting. Old Pashko needed his blood pressure medication, little Maria had a persistent cough, and the schoolteacher wanted to discuss expanding the health education program. It was good work, meaningful work, and as Amira began her morning examinations, she reflected on the strange path that had brought her to this place. She had started as a warrior, become a fugitive, and found her calling as a healer in a mountain village where courage was measured not in battles won, but in lives saved and communities served. Marcus watched her work, marveling at how she had transformed from the frightened woman in the Afghan desert to this confident doctor who treated every patient with gentle skill and infinite compassion. Their love had grown slowly in this peaceful place, built on shared purpose and mutual respect, rather than the adrenaline and danger of their first meeting. As the sun climbed higher over the Albanian mountains, illuminating the small clinic where two former soldiers had found their true mission, Marcus knew they had made the right choice. Sometimes the greatest victory wasn't in the battle you fought, but in the life you chose to build afterward.